All right, hey guys, this is Coach Graham. I am going to give you a rundown over what is going to be on your quiz before you take your quiz. So I highly suggest taking out that headphone that you think you're being slick with, haha, and pay attention because I'm going to go over every single thing that you're going to see. Okay, so the first few questions will go towards your exit ticket that you took over factoring out the GCF, okay? So you do have your first question that will be like this, where it just says find the GCF. So remember, you just have to use menu to 5, okay, for the numbers itself, okay? So if I want to find the greatest common factor between 10 and 15, I just press menu to 5, 10, 15. So in this case, it should be 5. And then remember, when it comes to variables, just look at what they have in common. So like 10 has 2 x's, 15 has 3, so they only have 2 in common, so it's going to be 5x squared. Okay, same thing if there's 2 letters, just take them individually. The greatest common factor between 2 and 8 will be 2. They're both divisible by 2. When it comes to x's, both terms, so 2xy squared and 8xy, only have 1x, so I can only take out 1. And then with the y's, 2xy squared may have 2 y's, but 8 only has 1, so I can only take out 1. So my greatest common factor between those two should have been 2xy. So you are going to have a question that says find the GCF. That's all I want. Okay, then you have questions that will say to factor the GCF only, right? So if you just want to factor out the GCF, you find the GCF like we did up here, but then you're actually going to divide it out. So the GCF between 6x squared plus 7 or 21x is going to be 3 for sure, because if I do menu to 5 between 6 and 21, you should get that it's 3. And then you can factor out an x from both. Only 1x because 21 only has 1. Okay, so I'm not going to take away more x's than I already have. Okay, that would be my oven for the brownies I'm making for the softball team. I am so sorry. Okay, so I'm going to, again, put my GCF on the outside of the parentheses. What goes on the inside is what I have left after I divide. So 6 divided by 3 is 2. And because I'm taking away 1x, I'm left with just 1x. 21 divided by 3 is a positive 7, so we put plus 7. And then the x's cancel. Okay. If it's 3 terms, again, just use the smallest and the biggest. And then see if that middle term is divisible by whatever the GCF is, which in this case it's 3. And then you can also take out an x. Okay, because every term has at least 1x. All right, so then we'll get into the factoring. So I'm going to do these two examples. You have one where the value of a is 1. Okay, so again, there is a shortcut to this. Okay, so if I'm trying to figure out what a times c is, but adds to b, okay, remember this is a, B, C. My pen's not working. Okay, so technically this is an imaginary 1, right? So this is the only time that our trick is going to work, is if A equals 1. Okay, so because when I go to multiply A times C, 1 times 6 is 6, and then I want it to add to whatever B is, which is 7. Okay, well, the factors of 6 are 1 times 6 and 2 times 3. Well, 2 times 3 adds to 5. So that's not going to be what I use. I'm going to use 1 and 6, okay, because it adds to 7. So again, we talked about how this is the shortcut. When A is 1, right, A has to be 1 to use this shortcut. Whatever you get for the factors you are going to use is your answer. So x plus 1 and x plus 6. I am okay with you using this shortcut for your quiz as long as a equals 1. Please do not mix that up is when a isn't 1. Okay, so again, when a is 1, so when x squared is just x squared, You just have to figure out what multiplies, okay, to C pretty much and adds to B. And whatever you get is your answer. So if it's a negative number that you get, it's X minus that number. Sorry about my dog. He's impatient. Okay. All right. So let's say A is not 1. I made this problem up. Okay. A is not 1. Okay. So again, I am trying to figure out what multiplies to A times C, but adds to B. Well, A times C, so the X squared times the number in front of X squared times your constant. That's 4 times 5, so that's 20, okay? And then it needs to add to 12, right? So that is a positive 12 and a positive 20. That is not always going to happen, right? If it's a negative number, you're gonna have to kind of figure out what numbers are gonna be. This is your hardest part. Remember, this is the hardest step that you have to do. So I'm going to think of numbers that multiply to 20. So it's 1 times 20, 2 times 10, 4 times 5. Okay, those are the only 3. I'm trying to figure out which of these will add to 12. Well, 2 times 10 will add to 12. Okay, so I'm going to use 2 and 10. So remember, at this point, my dog is wearing me out. At this point, you're going to rewrite 12x using 10 and 2. Okay, so I have 4x squared, but instead of 12x, I'm going to write my numbers that I chose. So 2x and a 10x, and then put plus 5. So again, I'm keeping A and C where they belong. I'm just rewriting 12 to be 2x and 10x. From then on, guys, it is the same steps. Okay, so we're going to split it in half, and I'm going to find the GCF of both halves. So when I figure out the GCF here, remember, you can use menu 2-5 if it's not obvious. Okay, so I'm going to divide out 2x. So on your anchor chart that I have on the wall, okay, on the side wall, I have that you should always take out an x, okay, in the first half. That never changes. Always take out an x, okay? You will not take out an x in the second half. So again, once you figure out the GCF, I'm going to factor it out just like we did above here, right? I found the GCF and I factored it out. Same thing, right? Same skill that you know. So 4 divided by 2 is 2, and I only have 1x left. Positive 2 divided by 2 is a plus 1, and then the x's cancel. So then I go to the next side, the other side. I'm going to figure out the greatest common factor between 10x and 5. So it's just 5. Right? I can't take away an x because 5 doesn't have an x. So I have a 5, and then I have 2x plus 1. The reason I got 2x plus 1 is because when you divide 10 and 5, you get 2, and the x stays. Then 5 divided by 5 is 1. Excuse me. So then make sure your parentheses match, and when they do, you're going to factor that out. So 2x plus 1 is your first binomial, and then your second binomial are the greatest common factors that you had. So 2x plus 5. And I know it's a plus 5 because I factored out a positive 5, okay? Remember, when this first term is negative right here, that you should factor out a negative. Okay, so if that would have been a negative 10, you would have factored out a negative 5. Okay, all right, so maybe you have time for one more. Let me find an example that involves negatives. Sheets. Let's do this one. Give me 2 seconds to figure it out. So we get 2x squared, and then it's going to be a positive 5 at the end, and then a negative 6x. Mm, 10, 2, 5, 9, 1. 2x squared. Oh, negative 11x. I'm silly. My pen. Goodness. Okay, so it should be negative 11x. So 2x squared negative 10x, negative 1x. Okay, positive 5. Okay, so again, my leading coefficient is not 1. So I do have to multiply those. So 2 times 5 is a 10, but I need it to add to negative 11. Okay, so this is when the negatives come into play. So again, I'm looking for factors of 10. So 1 times 10, 2 times 5. And which of these is going to add to negative 11? Well, they're both positive right now. So in order to add to a negative 11, they both have to be negative. They both have to be negative because I'm multiplying to a positive number. Well, the only one that's going to add to 11 is negative 1 and negative 10. So I'm going to rewrite negative 11 with negative 1 and negative 10x. Split it down the middle, find the greatest common factor. So again, the greatest common factor number-wise is not anything bigger than 1, because it can't be bigger than 1 because one of your coefficients is 1. But I'm going to take out an x. Always take out an x. If you don't have a greatest common factor, or your greatest common factor is 1, not that you don't, but you always take out an x. So then x goes on the outside, and I'm dividing out of an x. So I'm left with 2x on the inside, and then negative 1 on the other side. The greatest common factor between negative 10 and 5 is negative 5. This is what I was talking about. When this first term is negative, that your GCF also needs to be negative. So negative 10 divided by negative 5 is a positive 2x, and then 5 divided by negative 5 is a negative 1. They have 2x minus 1 in common, so I'm going to factor that out. And then what we have left is x minus 5. And that's your answer. I really hope you paid attention and that this helped you. I was really, really nice and put your times tables on the dry erase board. To most of y'all's right, maybe in front of you, depending on what desk you're sitting at. Okay, maybe even behind you. I suggest choosing a desk that you'll be able to see it if you can. And then your steps to factoring are also there. So if you forget, your steps to factoring are in a list on the whiteboard as well. All right, be good, work hard, don't give up. Love y'all.